his mom brought in his device, so we used an iPad, and we tried that with him. Jamie tried it with him. And did it work well? Did Jamie say anything about
He's
it?
still, like, emerging in that.
Okay.
One thing his therapist for his school uses, they take lanyards and they have, like, text pictures. They made them, like, maybe, like, this big, and they have hooked holes. Just like your basic ones that you use over and over, so if you need something, you're just like,
more, please.
and they can just have it right there in hand. So he's been doing that. Another thing they did with the PEX cards, for kids that, like, crumple them up or don't hold them, they actually taped them to blocks.
Oh, that's a good
Like
idea.
wood blocks. Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Think of that. Like, that's a good idea because he always, and he's been doing a lot better with it. So.
Good. So maybe that's something that we can think about getting together for him is text pictures. And just kind of seeing what he needs, what he wants, and just being able to communicate with him that way.
He knows sign language, but I mean, a lot of people don't.
A little bit of this Jeffrey.
He knows the basics of sign
Like,
language?
he knows more. Like, just now he's going more for more cookie. And sometimes he'll do eat, more.
Yeah, so just figuring out what works for him to communicate with him will basically help us all. With all of these functions of behavior, with these 5 functions, we have to think of a replacement behavior for these functions. So when he is trying to communicate what he wants, finding a way to get him that PEX picture, or finding a way to communicate with him with sign language or anything like that will help him tremendously. It only helps us grow, it helps him grow. Sensory need, when Tyler is looking for that deep pressure, when he goes up to you and runs up to you and wants to hug you, putting something there like a mat and just telling him, hands off, what do you want? And just trying to get him to go to the mat and tell you that he needs the mat, or high fives. He was doing awesome with high fives today. And a lot of times that's all he needs. He just wants that pressure in his hands. You see he bites his hand a lot. He needs that pressure. He needs that sensory need. So finding a replacement behavior by going to get a mat or giving him high fives, that will change him completely. A tangible gain, a replacement behavior for that. If a kid has, like say Brett has his cookie and Brady wants his cookie and he goes and grabs it, well, having another cookie available for him to hand it to him, like, no, that's not okay, and giving him what he wants. And showing him this is how you ask for it, or this is how you get it, is by good behavior, is by asking for it properly. Even when it's not food, if it's a crayon or even a sensory object like a mat, trying to have another one available, or giving them a different option. Instead of a mat, how about a ball? Let's bounce on a ball for a while, something like that. Attention seeking. Now that's a tough one because a lot of times when they're having their behavior, it's attention seeking, but it's negative, so you don't want to give them that attention. And we all do. We all run to them and say, no, we need to do this, or instead of doing that, we just need to ignore the behavior as long as it's not too aggressive. When he runs in the corner, just ignore him. If he's not hurting anybody or anything, ignore him. Maybe even giving other kids verbal praise in front of that child. Like, Brady, you're doing a great job sitting there, He'll come out because he'll see that somebody else is getting that attention, and it's a positive attention. So he'll start to react differently when he sees other kids are getting all the attention that they want because it's positive. Escape. Escape is a tough one because they try to escape out the door, especially our guys. They like to escape out of the door, and we have to run after them. You can't ignore it. But giving them a way to communicate what they want so that they're not escaping. Like, you don't want to do this? Okay, how about we try this? Or giving them a first then to show that you want to get up and move? Okay, first let's color this page, and then you can get up and go into the sensory area. Or you want to sit down and you want to escape, but you want to sit down and watch the movie for 5 minutes? Let's set the timer, and then you can get up and go jump on the trampoline. Just giving them another option to do. A lot of times the first then works well for like the tangible gains too, because if we only have one of the items, and like a trampoline, and say Tyler is jumping on the trampoline and Chase wants to get on the trampoline, giving him a first then. First, it's Tyler's turn. You do this first, and then it'll be your turn for the trampoline. And just kind of setting parameters for them. A lot of structure. They need structure. They have to have structure. If they don't have structure, it's going to make it harder for us and harder for them. Anybody have any questions?
I think one thing we can do that, or do better that we should just do is some sort of reward system or some sort of token system. Kind of tried it at the very beginning with the gold tokens and the putty, and it just kind of, well, do we do it for everyone or do we do it just for one person or whatever? So maybe it's a prize box or stickers. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah,
As a mom of a 4 and a 2-year-old, potty training both of them at like 19 months, stickers work fabulous.
even Chase made comments about stickers today. Did you do this when you were 4? Did you have stickers when you were 4? That's what he kept saying to me today. He was very excited about having a sticker.
And it's so simple, but it's so...
It means so much to them.
And I don't know if this is an idea that I did this with Ava, but she made her sticker chart. So, like, she drew the lines, at, like, 1.5, like, that was, like, being a part of maybe, like, at the beginning, do, like, just a simple chart, and then, like, for their good behavior, tell them, like, you made this. Now, you get to decorate it as you behave well, and as you listen well, as you finish tasks. And if you get 5 stickers for each box that we go in or whatever, then maybe there's an ultimate reward. Or something small, like a sticker book you can get cheap at a dollar store or whatever. So something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, it might come in handy.
Go ahead. I have, like, just from my son Brady for his therapy, so we've tried a lot of different reward methods. And every kid's different, too. But, like, if you have a reward thing, like with him, if he figures out, after I screwed up so many times, I'm not going to succeed, he'll just have a free-for-all and just be bad.
Right.
So you need to
It
make
can go either
it
way.
where either they can't measure it, like what we do. He has pom-poms he picks out. So if he does something that's really good, he gets a big pom-pom. If he gets something that's not as good as a small pom-pom, he needs to build up to a certain line. So there's no set way to manipulate it.
Sure.
And that way, you're not taking away something. 'Cause
Right.
some kids get set off. They have autism if you take it away. So if you just make it where they can earn, but they can't lose, then that might work pretty good. And then with, like, prizes, every kid's different. I don't, like, his therapy place, they do a treasure, like, they just have a tote, and they call it the treasure chest, and they have a bunch of, like, 5-cent, real cheap stuff, but some kids like, different stuff. So if it's just stickers and say the kid isn't into stickers, then they're not going to care.
Right.
So, but then, it just depends,
Yeah.
You gotta
Do you
just
like
kind of tweak it. A lot of kids in the closet, they like stickers, but, you just,
Yeah, every kid is
you
different.
just
Like
gotta try to think, it's
Have a
Tyler
little
was
variety
trying
pie with
Tyler, for example, I don't think stickers would work for Tyler.
No, I don't.
No.
He told me today.
That's what he told me.
Tyler's-
That's not
yeah.
a good surprise. Yeah.
Stickers aren't good either. Yeah. No, that's a lot of good input.
You said the free time, like that's like with the timer, like if Brady's good for so long, like when he's concentrating on a task and you have the visual, like how you guys have those things like where you visually see it counting down. And then if he does his task, then he gets free time. If he does it, more focused and faster, but still does a good job, then he gets extra time because he completed it faster. So it gives them motivation to give them maybe like a free time section in there where they could do a thing of their choice till their free time's up. And that way
We tried
they'll
that.
learn.
We tried
Did not
free time.
work.
Yeah, it didn't work so well.
Yeah, some kids,
Chaos.
it depends, like,
Because
it's
once they
different.
see one kid has the free time, then they all
Well, that's
think
true,
they
because
have
they're
free time.
distracted, because
That's
that's more in a
funny that-
one-on-one setting
Yeah,
in
so
our
that's a
house and in
one-on-one
therapy.
setting,
Yeah, because
yeah.
if they see Brady doing that, it could either motivate them, or it could be like, oh, let's go do what they're doing, yeah.
Right.
So I could see that being a disaster with a couple,
Yeah, especially in that room.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially because it is bigger now, so if they
Yeah.
see one,
that's true.
yeah, with the free, I don't know. That's a tricky one, because we want to reward them with free time, but it has to be something that they can either all do at the same time, but you can't do that, because if they're not finishing the task, then they don't get the free time, so it's, that is.
It's either that, or for maybe like they get like say all get 5 minutes of free time, and whoever does the best gets to pick what the activity first, and then the kid who does the second best gets to pick the next activity. But then still, anything you do is so much more probably
Yeah.
not about that.
And every week is different, so what's going to work one week may not work the next week. Every day is different for that child because they different environments, different people, judges.
I think the bottom line thing to remember is to always, it's never threatening to lose something. It's always, what are we going to do to
Just
gain something, you know? Because that way if they see somebody else get a sticker or get a prize from the prize box, it's not like they're losing,
Right.
you know, their prize from the prize box. They just haven't earned it yet. So it's like, well, what do we need to do to earn it, to do better?
I think maybe if we got those small plastic jugs that they have like animal crackers in or something like that, and put a line around it for each kid, have their own, and we did like the pom-pom thing or something like that. When they fill it to the line, we can do a prize.
Yeah.
If you turn to the back side of the paper, it talks about more physical intervention. When we have to use physical, not necessarily restraints, but anything physical, especially with heavy chase. He can get pretty aggressive. Like I said, he likes to kick, hit, spit, bite, and he doesn't take it easy. Gets pretty aggressive. Both feet can be going at the same time as long as with his hands and his spitting. So sometimes it is necessary for us to hold him, to restrain him. With Chase, I like to do it in a chair, just because then he sees something else. Usually there's a piece of paper in front of him, whether it's a coloring page or a cutting page or something like that, and it distracts him. I'll be sitting there holding him, and he'll look down at the paper. Do I need to color? Well, yeah, I need to color. Okay, and I'll let one of his hands go, and he'll start coloring. And if he starts hitting or swatting again, I just hold it again. I just let one hand go, so it gives him an opportunity to show good behavior and to be let go. The only time we really use it is when he's going to be harmful towards us, towards himself, or to property. If he starts kicking and hitting property, we can't allow that either because it's going to hurt himself.
So what do you do then? Like, say, he bites you, what do you do?
For biting's completely different. Biting is a whole other ballgame. When they bite, you want to feed into the bite. What I mean by that is when they don't pull your arm back. When they put their teeth on you, you want to push into their teeth. Because if you push in, they're going to let go of it. It's going to be too much on their jaw and they're going to release. If you pull back, that's when you get the bite marks. That's when you get skin torn and all that. So if any of them ever bite, whether it's, obviously you can't, if they're biting your stomach, you can't push in to their bite because it's all fat. So what you want to do is take their head and push their head in. Not hard, just gentle enough where it's pushing still into the bite. And eventually they'll release because they're like, the best part about it is any behavior, not to show emotion. If you don't show any emotion, if you don't raise your eyebrows, if you don't smile, frown, nothing. If there's no emotion, they'll stop. If they don't see it, they're not getting the reaction they want. They're not getting that attention seeking that they're looking for. So they'll just stop. And they'll be like, okay, that didn't work, let me try this. And that's when you might get the bite. Because they're looking for that, they're waiting for that reaction. They want that attention. Even though it's a negative attention, some of them don't know any better. This is how they grew up.
I find that the hardest because 2 weeks ago when I was here, who was here? Sherry. What was her name that was helping? Sherry. Okay. I said, my first instinct as a mom is like when my kids, they disappoint you or make you sad is to display that because you're like, oh, you just broke my heart. And then that makes them sad and they feel bad and they apologize. And she goes, but they're not your kids. So your sadness does nothing to them because they're not your children. They don't love you the same as you love your children. Your children love you. So she said, you have to cut that off. I said, that's hard for me because they're a kid. So you want them to feel loved and your sadness for negative behavior. But she said, you need to respond like that. So I think that's, to the negative, Chase, that day, you were restraining him. And I gave him his own pack of crayons so he wouldn't stop crying. Because he made me sad. I'm like, you're making me cry. I'd never seen him cry like he was crying that day, all the time. And you were, I think, restraining him. And she told me, she goes, he doesn't care that you said that it's going to make you cry. He's like, you're not his mom. You know, he doesn't have that emotion, you know, with you. I said, well, that's my first instinct with him crying. He's like, oh, that makes me so sad. She's like, but try not to tell him that. Just show him, like, you know, you don't need to feed into his emotions.
Right.
Because that's what he's looking for, but not to change his behavior. You know, it's not. So
Right.
that's something for me to focus on because that's hard.
And a lot
Not
of
to
times,
just-
kids with autism, which is mainly what we have in our room, they don't have emotion like we have emotion. They don't feel the emotion that we feel. They don't understand what being happy is or being sad. A lot of times those emotions get mixed. When they're sad, they could be smiling because they don't understand. They don't understand what the emotion is that they should feel. A lot of times when you go into a school or any kind of therapy, they have I feel and then they have the faces. And it's teaching them which face that they should use. So when they are sad, you go and you get that board and you say, I am sad. I feel sad. Or when they're starting to cry, I'm sad. Or if they're happy and they're smiling and they're having a good time and you can tell, like Jeffrey, that he was in a good mood today. You know, you have one of those pictures that say, I am happy. I feel good. You know, that makes all the difference because they don't know how to show emotion. We think they do because they're smiling or they're crying, but what we think is happy, they could be really sad inside. Just because they're showing that they're smiling, it's not necessarily true.
Do we have that in the room?
No.
No. So that's like the cards for that. Is that
But how I feel.
There's a feeling page in the communication books.
something? Okay. So
In
In the
the,
binder.
yeah, the binders are in the shelves.
Another thing is communication. I think we all need to get on the same page with how we talk, what words we use, because that could change the way a kid is too. I mean, phrasing it one way and somebody else phrasing it another, it could mean two totally different things. Even though we mean it to be the same, it could mean two totally different things to that child. I think we really need to kind of just do a communication book for ourselves and say, these are the words we're going to use, you know? Something like that, just so that we're all on the same page. If you ever do have a behavior, make sure that there's somebody else around. I know here we have to have two anyways. Just make sure there's always another adult around so that you can't get in trouble for doing it wrong or, you know, being abusive yourself.
Question about communication, if the parents have a different set of phrases they use and we use different phrases, is that going to be a collision or?
No, because it's two different environments. You have your home environment and then your church environment. And usually, most of the time they'll separate that and for home, they're comfortable at home. They use totally different language at home because they're comfortable. And they know what they can have and they know what they can't. Where here, what they might be able to do at home, they can't do here. Maybe some of these kids that do like to escape can run out the back door of their house and they're in a fenced-in yard, and that's okay. But here, if they run out the door, it's not okay. So just, just having those two separate environments, I don't think the communication would clash.
is a lock on the top of the door out of the question? Because sometimes it's like that one day with Lucas. Dude,
Yeah.
he's fast.
He's so fast.
But I was like, I think I had Brett on my lap and Andy beside me. We're coloring, and I see him out the corner of my eye, and it's like, drop those kids and like run.
Oh.
You know, and I know that day we were like, there was you were in there too. When we lost Tyler too. It was just a busy day. Like, is there something like just hi, or is that just a no-no?
I guess I haven't looked into it enough to see if we're allowed to have that.
Because even that day, Brett, I think it was like 4 times before 5 till, and I felt terrible, but it was just like I would be like beside him, and then he was just super fast. I'm getting old. Like,
We have this like plastic door, you know, like those childcare things.
oh yeah, okay, maybe that's better than a
Because
lock.
he doesn't have the fine motor skills, and a lot of them don't have the coordination to.
Get it.
Yeah.
And it's not just
But
children
fire,
though.
I don't know
No
if you
adults.
do it with
It's
fire
hard to, sometimes
or
it's
not.
hard to figure out those things.
I'm almost positive, Vinny, that we won't be able to do it.
Like what about it? Like the safety?
You know, because if there is a fire or something, we
Oh,
need to be able to
There
get
might,
out.
there
Right.
might be some kind of loophole, because I know his preschool in Nicole actually has one on the Janda. But I don't
But do
know.
they have another way to get out?
No, I'm not sure. I've been in the room a couple times. I'd have to ask and see.
Usually if there's 2 doors like we have,
Yeah, because that was kind of weird, because I saw that in there,
If
like,
we
we're
did it
supposed
to
to
the
have
main
that
door.
there.
The one that they are.
try to
Try to
get in and
escape
out.
them
The
over.
ones that they come in and out of,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If we just
We
use
might be
the
able to
one
use-
door for them.
and leave the other one unlocked.
Could you put a baby gate underneath in the frame, so they'd have to uncrank that thing first?
That's a
and
good
then go through
idea.
the door?
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
Slow them down anyway.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Slow 'em
Brian,
down.
kids that go right over it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, too.
Well, we have those ones, but they usually have to squeeze and pull.
Mhm.
Because like the ones where you just like pop, most of the kids could do it, but this, because they don't, like I said, the double step,
So, yeah,
like
the handle, you have
the
to squeeze it.
coordination they have, and it has an alarm on it too,
Yeah.
if you put it in.
Baby
Just
gates
get an
sounds
alarm on the door.
Our house is locked up.
Child leaving. Child leaving.
I know that just because I'm thinking about it, Lucas that day was playing with the outlets.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know if we can get some outlet covers,
Mhm.
and I meant to grab some.
Always good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Anything you want to know more about?
Well, that day Sherry, yeah, I don't know, like doing that, and it's, first of all, I'm doing my own child, but doing it to a different child, I
Besides the
feel
ones that have been with me, obviously. Have you ever
Well,
seen
who?
the child
like the
restraint?
child restraint. I don't feel comfortable. I mean, I did it several times with Sherry, but I don't feel.
I think
You know what
it's
it looks like?
it's kind of scary
No?
when you look at it, but I've gone to the CPI training, so like I understand the point in it. Like,
The process.
And I
Yeah,
understand,
or
like
how
how
to
she
do
said
it.
to pull up so they can breathe still. Like I would never
when-
known like what to
When
do.
are you physically restraining the kids, or why? I'm volunteering. I've actually been in the room.
The
yet,
only
but
time that I would
I've
do
been
it,
around a lot of.
or that anybody should do it, is
Uh-huh.
if there's harm caused to themselves,
Okay.
others, or
Like
property.
they're hitting somebody, something like that.
If they're hitting, kicking, spitting is also considered,
Because generally redirections, what do you want to try to do, right? For
absolutely,
negative
if you
behavior.
can, but when
Or when they're trying to run out of the room, you want to try to redirect them to something they like, so they won't try to run again. right?
Absolutely. Yeah, if they're just trying to escape out of the room.
Well, yeah. I mean, you gotta grab them. I get that.
Right, but not put them in a restricted, no.
Like, did you guys ever like do like a CPI like training course so some people can know like some of the basic maneuvers? Because I know like there's also the prone thing, which I don't believe in, where they put the kids, you know, that can be dangerous, like face down, and maybe like show people the difference of the dangers of if you accidentally
I
do
have-
it the wrong way versus doing the
Yeah.
CPI.
I have
And, like,
training
a
in
protocol.
CPI and TCI, which CPI is crisis prevention intervention, and TCI is therapeutic crisis intervention. I have training in both. They both get used pretty regularly at my school, which is sad but true. I try not to use them, and with these kids here, I don't think that we ever will. The only thing that we would use is the child pose restraint, just because Chase does get that aggressive. He does. He will kick, hit, bite. He'll do everything just to get your attention or just to get out of doing whatever he's supposed to be doing. A lot of times I'll pick him up and I'll walk him over. I mean, you saw me today. I'll pick him up and walk him over to the chair, and sometimes he can be redirected like that just by looking at the page. And it's no problem. I told him to sit with his hands folded for 1 minute, and I put the timer on and put it in front of him, and he was able to do it without my hands on him. That's what we want to try and get to, but sometimes it's not always a possibility because he is too aggressive. Do you guys want to see what the child restraint looks like? Or are you not that interested?
Well, I mean,
Well,
we can see what it looks like. In the kids classroom, it's either going to be you or Jamie,
Basically, yeah.
probably. And so, since you guys are both actually certified, like have a certificate
Right.
in CPI, and I think we've talked about this before, but you two should be
That's how
the
I
ones
feel.
doing that.
Right. But if you have like a sub there,
Uh-huh.
like if Amy was there as a sub,
Right. But if you're not there or Jamie's not there, I'll probably
You usually
be there.
but if for some reason you can't be there, and you do have Amy there, somebody else needs to.
somebody who's
Well, how do you get
certified.
certified?
Take the course.
I mean, like, is that something
Yeah.
that's only offered at certain, like,
I bet we could. Host one here if someone, if there are people who want
There's
to
enough people that
be
want to
certified.
participate.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd feel more comfortable doing that,
Right. Right.
Especially
But
with-
two, I mean, at this point, Yeah, I think in the kids' room, we've seen, some pretty intense stuff, like some stuff that special ed teachers. There are special ed teachers out there who I'm sure haven't even dealt with some of this stuff. In the adult room, it's been a blessing that pretty much all the students. I mean, they're very. Yeah, they're pretty chill. Very compliant. But if you say an adult comes in who's older, very big, and can have meltdowns and aggressive, then you're talking a whole different, you're talking a 2 people, maybe 3-person restraint, and, we haven't had to cross that bridge, but if we do, then I guess, it makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, I do have a question though, because when she was talking to me about the child restraint, she said that you shouldn't have to be, which now with you saying that this is different, but she said that one of us should be able to step in so you don't have to, so the class isn't just a free-for-all, like everyone's waiting for you to come back. So with that being said, that she's handling Chase, would you prefer one of us just be like, okay, onto this, like I would rather, but then it's like I don't want to step on your toes either. So
basically,
like you rather.
when it comes to that point, I'll say, Kara, take over.
Okay.
Or
And that's what Jamie
like today
said
I
to
did
me.
with
She
Vinny.
goes, next time that happens, just lead on with the class. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically just follow the schedule. Whatever's next, go for it, because
Because I would feel more comfortable taking over than and let you just have that.
yeah.
So, okay.
No, it's good. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And when I do the restraint, it's not something that I'm doing to hurt them. It's basically just for safety issues, so that they're not getting hurt, so that we're not getting hurt, and property's not getting destroyed. It's basically just to say, that's not okay. You can't hit people. When you go out in the world, you're not going to be able to hit people. People are going to be hitting you back. So let's try and get it under control now. And it's basically just to help them know their boundaries, because some of them just don't have boundaries, especially at home.
How long are they in the restraint?
It all depends. When he's really aggressive, it will take a little bit longer. I wouldn't say that it's taken any longer than 5 minutes. And the restraint isn't laying on the floor. When I do it with Chase, it's, Kara, can I do it?
Yes.
When I'm doing it with Chase, basically, I take his arms, he'll be standing up, I take his arms and I cross him like this, and I sit him on a chair, and I'll just sit like this, and I just wait until he calms down. And I put my shoulder here just so that he can't headbutt me. I'm always looking away, and he's not looking at me, so he's not able to spit at me, he's not able to see my reaction. He's looking pretty much at nothing. And he's able to turn his head whatever way he needs to, but if I'm sitting here like this, he's not getting any feedback from me, and that's what he wants. So eventually he stops. And if I see that he's calmed down, if he's not fighting me anymore, I'll say, Chase, are you ready to color? Or whatever's in front of him. Chase, are you ready to move on to the next activity? And he'll be able to tell me yes or no.
Release from pulling.
And then if
Feel
he's
the
not ready,
tension release.
right. And if he's not ready, then I just sit there for another minute and I wait. And he's able to tell you when he is ready.
Can I add to that?
Mm-hmm.
Just, I was telling Teresa, I think 2 weeks ago, like when it happened. The first time that Jamie did it, I mean, Chase was being pretty violent that day.
Yeah.
And she just kind of sat on the ground because he was, like, kicking, pushing off of her. And so she just sat on the ground, like, had her feet crossed with him and just ignored him the whole time. It was a good 5, maybe more. But after that, like, he was perfect. Like, he didn't act out once because she's, like, knowing that, yes, you can be disciplined and restrained and she's ignoring your behavior, but after that, she's not going to treat you any differently. So, like, I think that's what he needs.
That's the biggest thing with Chase is just to,
He's still loved.
it's just to tell him, who loves you? I love you. God loves you. Who loves you? And 3 weeks ago when I was with Chase, I was sitting by him and he's like, you love me. I said, I do love you. He's like, you really love me. I said, I do really love you. I said, who else loves you, Chase? And he's like, God. And I said, that's right, God loves you too. So it's slowly getting into him, and he's slowly realizing that all that negativity that surrounds him isn't everybody. It's not always going to be around him. There are people that love him and that want him to do better. So I think it's slowly creeping in there. Yeah. He's going to be an awesome little kid. He needs that positive feedback. He has to have just somebody around him that is, you're awesome. That was great. Good job. Anything. Just any kind of verbal phrase. Anything else? Any questions?
I commented the communication where you said you want to get more uniform, like how, I mean, you're going to have to maybe some built-in flexibility.
Oh,
Because like parents will probably have some input where they have the kids in therapy and they may react to certain things different than another kid might,
Right.
as far as,
And that's what we were saying.
or they're just their general home life too. And,
That's what we were
you know what I
saying.
mean? I know we want to communicate the same, but each individual kid might have their own way that they react to communicating. So I don't know if a generic just words saying certain ways is going to always apply. Do you know what I mean? Like having more
Right,
some
but I'm-
flexibility built in within that.
Right. What I'm saying though is if you see Tyler react negatively to something that you say, all right, that's on our board. Let's not say this to Tyler.
Right,
You know?
right.
Or if something works, like with Andy, if something works with Andy, all right, now that's a phrase we can use all the time, but we have to be, just everybody has to be aware of it. So it's more getting along the lines of having a communication book so that people are aware of what to say and what not to say.
Trigger words.
Oh, so you're like thinking there'll be lists with each kid's certain things that might set them off. Or that's
Right.
what you're trying to. Okay, I see now.
Like, I'm sure, I know for a fact that Tyler has, on any
I'm
given
familiar
day,
with
it will
Tyler,
be
so
different,
I understand.
but Tyler has his set phrases that he just can't hear. And when he hears them, he explodes. Then he starts flailing his arms and biting himself, and so those words, we just know not to use with him, or not to use in the room. But then there's other words that are happy words that they can relate to that are good.
So I get what you're saying now.
You know?
You have a kind of list with things that work with each kid.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of just to have those trigger words.
Yeah, I thought you were making like more of a generic. That's what I thought you were getting at first. So I just miss. Okay.
More trigger words.
Right.
Those are the ones we want to avoid. So basically just when they react negatively, just write it down as a side note. Okay, that's not going to work. Anything else?
So, well, I'm not in the class, but, so, say Chase started biting me or whatever, and I'm not trained to do that. I mean, what are you supposed to do?
If Chase was to start, if he was to bite you,
I mean, well, kicking or whatever, and then when you guys will
we
come
would take over.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't leave our eyesight. I think Jamie and I are pretty aware of him. So, and Vinny are pretty aware of him. So he doesn't really leave our eyesight. And once he is out of the room, we're out of the room. And that's when we were saying somebody else needs to step in and take over so that it doesn't go chaotic. Somebody else just has to step in and say, all right, let's go pray, or time for the movie, or whatever it might be, while we're running after Chase. If he was to go in that room and start in that room, we'd be right behind him. So I don't think he'll ever get that far, though. So
Chase has never ran. Knock on.
he has. He did
Has
when
he?
he first started.
Did he?
Ran out of the room, out the side of the building.
Did he?
Oh, yeah.
Was it there for that?
Not too much, though.
Not for real.
No,
I mean,
he's gotten much better. He's gotten
and not
a lot
every,
better.
the thing about Chase is like, he's not terrible all the time.
Nice.
not.
If he ran into the room, he'd probably be more likely to just be really inquisitive as to what's going on, Oh, who are these people?
Yeah. He's such he could be such a sweetheart. It's just when you tell him no, obviously any kid, they don't like to hear that, so but it's just redirection.
Yeah, I think some of us are, quieter than others, but like, you can never use enough positive, just praise, because you want to avoid, you want to ignore as much as you can with the negative, but it's only going to help if you do more and more positive. So when Andy's doing a great job sitting down and coloring, like, again, our natural tendency is to just, he's doing what he's supposed to do, and just kind of are passive, but take the moment to just say, whoa, man, awesome job,
Right.
like, great coloring. And the more specific you can be, like, great opening that door, or great sitting and cutting that page, or, the more specific it can be.
And I think when you give that verbal praise, you have to show your facial expression. You have to get excited for them. You have to be just as excited as if you were sitting in that chair and somebody was giving it to you. You know, you have to show that on your face because they see that and they're more about what's here than they are what's coming out of your voice. So if you're really excited but Chase is having a hard time and you're like, yeah, great job, Andy, he's not going to get anything out of that. You know, you're trying to deal with what's over here, but talking to Andy. You know, so you got to show it all in your emotion. Even though they don't get the emotion, you have to show it so that they learn. Bonnie, you want to say something?
Oh, I just had one other thing that helps with my kids at redirection. Sometimes, like, if I'm trying to get them to do a certain task, like I want them to color, for example, instead of, saying, okay, we're going to color, I sometimes say, okay, what color crayon do you want? Do you want a red one or a blue one? And that way, they just kind of go to that. And it seems to always, I mean, not all the time, but it does sometimes work better. But every kid's different.
Absolutely. I think given choices.
But then the kids that want to be in control, since they're choosing their color, they're still
feel like they are.
Mhm.
And that's even when it comes to scissors. Do you want the red scissors or the green scissors? You know, something as easy as that changes, how they feel because they do feel they're in control and they got to pick whatever they wanted, and even though they're complying with the instruction. Nothing? Anybody else? That's all I pretty much have.
Thanks, Nicole.
Sure.